What the fuck is going on, losers? Today we're going to be talking about one of the most unique artists in the dark trap, trap metal, and horrorcore hemisphere. Your boy, Sematary. He is to trap metal what Mayhem was to death metal. I think that's the best comparison I can draw, because while death metal is kind of super technical and refined, Mayhem's black metal was not that at all. It was like the DIY punk version of death metal. And Sematary's trap metal, if you can call it trap metal, is really more DIY punk, not very refined, just pure chaos, if you will. But let's get into it. Sematary was born on December 22nd, the year 2000, as Zane Steckler, and that, my friends, is a badass name. If my name was Zane Steckler, I would not pick a stage name. I would just be the rock star, Zane Steckler. Also, side note, December 22nd is basically winter solstice. So if we have any of the crystal-carrying astrology folks out there watching, can you please tell me what being born on both Y2K and the winter solstice means, if anything? He was the founding member, along with ghostemane, who we'll also talk about shortly, of Haunted Mounds, a horrorcore dark trap collective of artists. The collective currently consists of Sematary, Buckshot, Hackle, and Turnabout, supported by producers Gonerville, Grimoire, Oscar 18, and Snuff. Here's the thing. I gotta keep calling them trap metal, dark trap, because that's the closest thing we can get to labeling them in Haunted Mounds. But in reality, I don't think they really fit into any of those categories all that well. It's like I said previously, it's more akin to like 1980s Norwegian black metal than it is to trap metal. That is, if black metal had distorted 808s and rap verses, Sematary would be the closest thing to DIY hardcore punk or black metal that you can get while listening to what is still technically classified as rap. He claims to have found influence from artists such as Chief Keef, Witch House, Young Lean, and Black Cray, and he published his first album, Grave House, in 2019, which I, for one, don't fully understand. Is the house a grave, or is the grave a house? Can somebody clarify that for me? For this first album, he collaborated with fellow Haunted Mounds member ghostemane, who apparently has completely quit music and scrubbed all of his social media from the internet. The first album was released as Haunted Mounds and not as Sematary, and it's not actually available on Spotify or any major streaming service as far as I can tell. The first album he released that is actually still available on Spotify and as Sematary was The Rainbow Bridge, followed by The Rainbow Bridge 2, and then, shocker, The Rainbow Bridge 3. Apparently he's got some sort of rainbow bridge fetish. I'm not really sure what that is. And I also kind of like that if you've ever seen these album covers, I'm assuming if you're watching this you've seen it and you probably know exactly who he is. But every single album cover he's ever posted has some really, really poorly done Photoshop of him in like thrift store clothing with a rainbow behind him, and it feels very, very early 2000s, like MySpace aesthetic. Totally unique, totally dope, totally different from what a lot of people are doing today. The first two Rainbow Bridges were collaborated with ghostemane, but the third and final, for now, Rainbow Bridge album was the first one released after ghostemane disappeared from the interwebs. Now, Sematary has consistently released 2 albums a year since he first started, and according to some fans, the releases are usually combined. There's one really dope, really badass album, and then he usually has like a secondary album that goes along with it, with kind of like what I would call the throwaway songs, you know? Which also kind of draws a parallel to the Beatles, who also released 2 to 3 albums a year for the majority of their very short career. Now, I'm not gonna lie, it's been hard to find a lot of info about Sematary. I even tried asking ChatGPT questions about him, and they legit said, sorry, ain't nobody by that name existing, fam. So if any of the info I'm about to say is wrong, I offer my sincere condolences and apology, because it's not all that well documented. But as far as I've been able to tell, Sematary had moderate success with the first Haunted Mounds release, Grave House, but didn't really blow up until Haunted Mounds 2 was released as a solo album. Since then, he's continuously released albums and singles, garnering steadily more and more success from the underground trap and horrorcore scene. Now, our homie been going at it for about 4 or 5 years now, steady, and been seeing success for the last 2 or 3 years consistently, and he's been growing steadily bigger and bigger and bigger. I could have swore, like, I checked on his numbers like a year ago, and again, don't quote me on this, but I remember it being at like 60,000 monthly listeners, and now he's at 250,000 listeners. In about a month, he's going to be opening the Grey Day tour for Suicideboys, Ghostemane, City Morgue, and I think Ramirez too. And I think that is a huge step up. I mean, he's playing stadium shows. I got tickets to his shows here in Portland. I'm going to see all of them on October 18th in Portland. And he's going to be playing for, the stadium seats 17,000. And most of the time, Suicideboys sell out their shows. So he's going to be playing for, the same size concerts that like a Metallica or Eminem would be playing for, which is honestly fucking wild. Not to mention, he's playing with the big four: Suicideboys, Ghostemane, City Morgue, and Sematary. I would call them kind of the big four. I mean, yeah, they kind of cover all the bases of what people categorize as trap metal. And I think all four of those artists kind of cover the whole subgenre pretty well. And hey, since he's touring with all those guys, maybe we'll see some collabs coming out, maybe? I could see maybe a Ghostemane Sematary collab, but I don't know if Ghostemane would do that. Maybe. I mean, Ghostemane's collaborated with Scarlord, Suicideboys. I don't think Ghostemane has collaborated with City Morgue, as far as I know. But maybe we'll see them all do a song together for this. Now, the real question is, do you think Sematary is an artist who's going to last long term? Or do you think he's going to be considered a fad in 10 years or so? Do you think we're going to look back on this and be like, wow, I can't believe I listened to that. That was so cringe. Or do you think he's going to have longevity and last for years and years and years and be a cult classic? It's hard to tell because, back 15 years ago, there was bands like Broken Side, Curve, who were doing shit like that, who was kind of just wild and off the wall. And none of them are really successful today. It kind of just disappeared. People just stopped listening to it. So I tend to wonder if something like Sematary is going to last long term, or if he's just going to, not last. I don't know, dude. He might have to change up, but maybe not. Maybe if he changed up, he'd lose his fans. Who can really tell? Maybe he sticks with it and is super successful, and in 30 years he's playing stadiums by himself headlining. It's hard to tell, man. You can never really tell what time's going to do. But who knows? You guys think he's going to end up blowing up even bigger, or you think he's going to fade into obscurity in 15 years? Why don't you let me know your thoughts down below? And this has been some kind of, sort of thorough history, if you will, with your boy, Young Death.